This is Everyday Science for Everyday People,
where you do everyday things with everyday tools.
Okay, so today we're going to show you how to dissect a worm. When you are a scientist, you need to wear a lab coat. Otherwise, you're not a certified scientist. If you do not have a lab coat, wear white clothes, like we are. If you have a white shirt that has stuff written on it, then just wear it backwards. That's what we're doing.
Or you can even wear it inside out.
The next step to becoming a scientist is having safety goggles. We do not want things to fly into your eye like worm guts. Okay, the second step is you need to wear safety gloves. If you don't have plastic safety gloves, you can just wear regular gloves. Because worms have a lot of germs.
They're germ worms.
When you're a scientist, after you cut open the worm, which we're not doing that yet, you will need to have something to prod the worm with because don't use your fingers, that's not good. You take a paper clip and you straighten it out as best as you can. But see, you leave a little handle on the end because that way you can still hold on to it with your gloves on.
Remember, do not get it caught on your glove, especially if you are wearing knit gloves. Now from now on, we're going to call your right paper clip, we're going to call that red axe, and your left paperclip, that is your left axe. So when we say prod the worm with your right axe, that means use your right axe.
Okay, the other thing you need is you need pins, because that is what holds open your worm when you cut it open. And you need an X-Acto knife, because those are very scientific and they work for cutting things. If you don't have an X-Acto knife, hair cutting scissors work really well too. Scientists use the 5 senses to observe their worm. They use sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. You can do all those things to your worm to see what it is like, what color it is, or how thick it is, or you can feel it, or you can taste it. Then write down your notes about what it is like using your 5 senses. You can compare your data to this side, and then you can figure out which worm you have. So for example, my worm is orange and white. So that means I have the South Australian fishing worm.
For example, my worm is red and green.
So then he matches it up to these words right here.
But it doesn't match because that worm is green and red. If your worm is red and green, and it says green and red on the chart, maybe you just need to flip it around. Look, now my worm is red and green. And it's still green and red.
And he has the American Christmas worm. After you've established which worm you have, put your worm on your piece of cardboard.
Now, if you have trouble keeping it in place, use your pins.
Charlie, you're
Pin
doing it
its
upside
head
down.
to the cardboard and its tail to the cardboard. That way, when you slit it open, it'll still be fine. Like this.
Then, take your X-Acto knife and slit your worm right down the middle.
This is the most difficult part.
My
You may have to get a couple tries. Now remember, keep your safety goggles on. You don't want worm guts in your eyes.
And then pry your worm open. If it's too hard to pry your worm open with your gloves, you can take them off for this part. Just don't lick your fingers because worm guts are gross. And make sure you don't have to cut the entire length of your worm, but make sure you at least cut through the middle because that's the part we'll be looking at today.
Yes, the middle part is the part where the worm changes color.
Yep.
Now use your right answer to pry open your worm, and your left answer pry open the other side.
But if that's too hard, you can use your fingers. And pin it open with pins.
Using your answers is very, very safe. Using your fingers may be dangerous. Just a warning.
But we are trained professional, everyday people. After you have your worm pinned open, put your gloves back on. This part is dangerous.
Now everybody, we will put on our thinking caps. Your worm should look like this. Notice how it is cut open like that.
And pinned.
Don't worry if your worm is a different color. There are many different types. Now, put on your thinking caps and try to identify the different parts of the worm. Use your right answer and your left answer to pry open the worm and
pull out different organs of the worm and stick them on the side of your cardboard.
If you are having trouble getting your organs out, maybe you need to cut farther into your worm. Also, you can determine the color of the worm's parents by looking at the worm. This worm is green and red. I can then determine that the mother was green and the father was red.
If his worm were red and green, then the mother would be red and the father would be green.
Or, my worm is flipped backwards.
Once you have all your organs out, you can observe them.
Now that you're done dissecting your worm, now let's think about how this applies to your life.
Well, first of all, you learned how to use your 5 senses today. Not that I remember what they are, but you did learn how to use them. Second of all, you learned how to use pins. And you learned how to recycle cardboard.
Now, if you don't think this is important, just remember, this may be important if you would like to teach someone else how to do it someday.
So remember everybody, if you want to learn how to teach people everyday science for everyday people, just remember all the things we taught you and you'll be really good at it. When you're all done with your worm, make sure you throw it away and use decontamination devices to decontaminate everything because worms are very dangerous. We have 3 different species of worms. No, I'm not going to tell you what they are.
You must look at your worm and make observations about what it might look like if it were real.
Or what? No. If you do not have white clothes, it's okay. Just take a different white clothes and turn it
upside down.
Wait, I don't remember how to do this. Okay, hang on. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, time out. There's an A written on my wall. Let me see.
This is mine too.
The first step is to observe your worm and think about what it looks like. You can use touch, smell, theory.
Listen to your worm.
Yeah. No. Okay, here we go. If your pin's on,
your worm is like torn apart.
No, I'm getting the organs out.
Now that you are done dissecting your worm, wait, what was it? Oh, now that you are done dissecting your worm, let's. Oh, what's it?
It's so hard to take myself seriously. Notice at the middle where the color changes, how it's a different color besides the 2 sides. For example, mine is orange and white, but in the middle it's light orange. That is very important. It means that the 2 colors are mixing and the whole worm is the same worm. Because if the colors weren't mixing, then the worm would be 2 separate worms stuck next to each other.
Okay. When scientists make observations, they use the 5 senses. That would be sight, you can look at your worm. Smell your worm. It may smell earthen smell. For example, smell like sugar. Use your right answer and your...
No, okay, that's bad.